Hey, what's up guys? This is Joe from Excel by Joe. In today's video, what I want to do is show you how to backtest sports betting games. So I'm going to get data from point spreads and over-unders and the results from, I'm going to use NBA's example, but you can use any sport. This will translate to there, and show you how to take all the data, how to clean it, create new columns to do write formulas on, and then to write these formulas that will show you how teams do in certain situations, like how is a team when the over-under is 230 or higher, how do they do against the spread, or just different things like that. So let's dive right into it in 1 second. Just two quick things. Be sure to smash the thumbs up, smash the like button. If you enjoy the video, it would help out. And also check out the links below. If you want to learn more about using spreadsheets for daily fantasy or for gambling, go to my spreadsheet school, spreadsheetschooldfs.com to find some more video courses on it. And also optimizelineups.com. I've got a lot of spreadsheet tools to help you build lineups and simulate games and so on. So let's get right into it. So what we're going to do here is take on sportsbookreviewonline.com. They have the odds archives. So I'm going to do this for NBA. So let's click on this, and I'm just going to do the 1 year, but you can combine years. You want to do the last 10 years to find even better trends. That is up to you. So let's just do the 1 year and go with that. So I just click on it. It's going to open. And let's see, here we go. There we go. So we got all our data. So I'm going to click Enable Editing. And now what we need to do is we got to clean the data. So first I want to make it a little bigger so I can see it. It's way too tiny for my eyes. And it'll help on video too. So let's get this data a little bigger. Let's go even a little. There we go. Okay. So now we've got the date, which is fine. We got ROT, which I'm not sure what that is. I think it's just the game number. We're going to delete that. Visitor home, it's important. We got the team. I'm not going to do anything on quarters. If you want to get into doing quarters, because obviously that's a big thing you can bet, you can, but I'm not going to do that in this video. We want the final score. Here are the odds, the open and close odds. I don't care about the open. Let's just use what the close odds are. We got the money line and how it is for the second half, which I'm not going to do anything on the second half here. So now we've got our data, and let's take a look at it. So we've got the date, which is fine. Visitor home. So now every game here goes visitor home, visitor home. So we're going to need to look at, we're going to create columns which will give you like what the over-under is for the game. So like in this Brooklyn game, this is the over-under and the point spread. But it varies. Sometimes the top team, sometimes the visitor will have the point spread. What it does is whoever is the favorite, like in this case Milwaukee is the favorite by 1.5 points, it puts 1.5 on their line, and then it puts the over-under on the other line. So we're going to need to write formulas in order to pull this out, because just looking at this, sometimes you can get the over-under, sometimes you're going to get the point spread. We need to have both of those if we want to accurately run make some formulas on this. So here's the scores. Here's the over-unders. So it goes from 1 all the way to, looks like 19.5 is the highest point spread. And then 199 is the lowest over-under. So we're going to need to know that. And let's also, one thing I want to do is the PK for pick games for 0. We got to turn this into a number and into an integer, because we can't write a formula, at least not easily, when it just says PK. So now that means all these are zeros, which there was no point spread. And here's the money line. I'm not going to do anything right on the money line right now, but I'm just going to leave it there. So we've got our data. Now we need to start adding columns, because we're going to need to test each one of these lines. So the first one is the over-under. We want to figure out what the over-under is. And to do that, what we need to do is, first off, we're going to have to test in here, because say if we're down here running this script, we're going to need to look at one number and the other number for the game. And like in each case, like here's a game, because the top number is visitor, then bottom number is home. Here's a game, visitor, home. So when we're comparing numbers, we can't look at like visitor and then home up here, because those are two different games, and they would be useless to look at. We need to look at the visitor and then the home beneath it. So we're going to start writing the formula equals if this cell equals V. So if that equals V, then we know we're going to look at this line and the line below. And if it doesn't equal V, then we're going to do an if statement to look, say if it's home, we're going to look at this line and the line above it. And that's how we're able to pull out, like we're going to add up the total score, we're going to pull out the spreads, the over-under, and do a few other little tricks with it. So we've got if B equals 2, or if B2 equals V, so it's visitor. So now we're going to do an if statement. If E2, so we're going to look at this number. If it's greater, we said 19.5 was the highest over-under, so we'll say if it's greater than 20. So if it's greater than 20, then we know that this is a over-under number. So if it's greater than 20, since it's over-under, we want to, and we want to pull the over-under, we're going to just put E2. So we're going to end up pulling that. Otherwise, if it's a small number, then that means the number below it is the over-under. So then we're going to click that. So now we have up here, if it's E2, otherwise, if it's not greater than it, then we want E3. Okay, so we got our first if statement. But now what if this wasn't a V, if it was home? So if this is home, we're going to want to look at the number above. So we're going to start off the formula the same way. If E2 is greater than 20, if it is, then we want E2 again. So if this number is greater than 20, we're going to put E2. So then we know that's the over-under. Otherwise, this time instead of putting E3, the number below, we will put E1, which would be the number above it. So now we got to close out our if statement, and then put another parenthesis to close out our initial if statement. And we press enter. And it looks like it rounded it here. There, so I made it a little bigger. So now when I copy this down, there, you can tell it gave 233 for both of them. So now on the Milwaukee line, even though it showed it's 1.5 for the point spread, it's still picking up 233. So now when we analyze this line, it'll know this Milwaukee in this game, the over-under was 233. And you can tell, you can do a quick check and see there's over-under twice the same number. So then we know that it worked. So next is the point spread. We want to copy the point spread, and we're going to do it in a pretty similar way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the formula, press Control-C, and then I'm going to paste it over here and press enter. So now it's showing, okay, it's showing point spread 233.5 obviously isn't right, but we need to change something. So first is we want to check if B2 equals V, so then we can look at this number and the number below. Now if E20, we want to change this to less than, because then we'll know it's a point spread. So if it's less than 20, then we know it's a point spread. Then we'd want E2. However, the way this site does it, see how Milwaukee's the favorite, they were showing plus 1.5. We want to change it to minus 1.5. So we'd want minus E2. Then that just shows that they're a favorite. So that means they're giving away points. Like Milwaukee's giving away 1.5 points. And otherwise, if it's not less than 20, then we're going to do E3, because then we know it's the other number that is the point spread. But we're not going to do negative, because since it's not on their line, they would be the underdog. So we want it as a positive. And then we want to continue on. And if it's the home team, we're going to do the same thing, less than 20. And we want minus E2 again, or E1, which would be the number above, in case that it's not less than 20. So we're going to press enter, and then we got 1.5. So now when I copy this down, if we look, see, it made it negative here. So Milwaukee's the favor, and it's minus 1.5. Well, Brooklyn is underdog, and they're getting 1.5. Same here in the Lakers game. Lakers, the money line's minus 160, so that means they're the favorite. So they're giving away 3.5 points. Golden State's getting 3.5 points. So that's how we figure out the spread. Next, we want to check just who won the game, the win-loss. And we're going to kind of do a very similar thing. So let's just start it off the same. We want to check if it's V, because we always have to check if this equals V, so we know whether to look below or above. And that's just for this site. Every site will be different. I'm going to have links for all this stuff below, where you could even download this spreadsheet too, so you can kind of follow along. So, okay, so we have this, if it equals V, and what do we want to check? We want to check if simply D2, which is their score, is greater than D3, which is just their opponent's score. So if this score is greater than that score, we want to put a win. Otherwise, obviously, we're putting a loss. So now we're going to put comma. So what if it's not V? Then we got to do, if it's home, so then we're going to look at the number above. So we're going to do the same type of formula. If D2 is greater than D1 now, because we're looking at the number above it, then it's a win. Otherwise, it's a loss. Oops. Let's see if we look back. I didn't put the double parentheses at the end because you have to close out this if statement here with the parentheses. Then we got to close out the big if statement with the parentheses. So see, like in this, if it's V, like here's the true part. Here's what you're doing if it is V, and then this is what you're doing if it's not V. So we got to close that out too. So now when I copy this down, we got win, loss, win, loss. And so obviously there should be one team with a win, one team with a loss in each game. Like here, this would be a game. We got a win and we got a loss. So let's keep moving on. So now let's check out the over under the outcome. Like, did the game go over or did it go under? So let's start off our usual way. B2 equals V. If it equals visitor, then we're going to do our first if statement. So if D2 plus D3, so this is the total of the score, greater than our over-under, which is right here. If it's greater than it, then what do we put? We want to say over, because then the game obviously went over. Otherwise, if it didn't, then it's under. So that's our first if statement. And then now we're going to do the same way. If we got to look at the number above it. So we want D2 plus D1, which is the number above it. Obviously, I mean, the word is final. So in here, it would never look at this, but because it's V, it wouldn't have to. So if D2 plus D1 is greater than G2, then we're saying it's over. And if it's not greater, that's less than, then the game went under. So we close out the if statement. Now we got to close out the initial if. Press enter. So this went under. So now you should get the same result though on both, because the whole game went under. And if you look, these two combined equals 231, and the over-under was 233, so it did go under. And you can see all the over-unders are coming in pairs, like for the game. So that's how we get the over-under. So we only got a couple more columns to go, and then we can start checking this. So we got, let's see what the points are with the spread, because we really only want to find out the win-loss with the spread left. But we should start off by checking out what the points are. So what are the points of the spread? Well, it's this plus whatever the spread was. So in this case, they got 105.5 because they scored 104 and they're getting 1.5 points. So we can copy that down. And then we want the opponent points. And to do that, now we got to do it in a little if statement, because we want to know where we are in the game, if we're home or away. So if this cell equals V, so then we know we would look at the cell below it. Then what we want to do is put this cell, because that's the opponent's points. So in this line, the opponent's points goes below it. Otherwise, if it's the home team, we're going to look above it, and it would be D1. So we press enter, and there it is. So now in this game, Brooklyn scored 104. They got a point and a half, so they got 105.5. Their opponent scored 127, so obviously they didn't win. And that's what we want to just check, the win, loss, or tie with the spread. So let's take a look at that. And let's first check if it's a tie. So we're going to do if. So these are the two cells that were, the rows that were, columns that were, comparing. So if the points of the spread equals your opponent points, then it's a tie. And now we got to do our if statement, but what I'm going to do here is, it's just a little trick I did just to, oops. Okay. There's sometimes what I want to do when I test if statements and I'm writing them in pieces, I'll just put like a 1 or something in there just to kind of, before I write the second part of it. So now I've got if K2 equals L2 equals tie, otherwise it's a 1. So instead of this 1 now, I'm going to do my second if statement. So the second if statement is just checking if it's greater than or less than. So now if K2 is greater than L2, then it's a win. Otherwise, the last option is it's a loss. So we end the if statement and press enter, and we get a loss. So we're going to copy that down, and we got a win and a loss. And for each game, there should be a win and a loss, unless obviously it's a tie. And now all I'm going to do is take all of these and just copy them all the way down. And there's quite a bit of rows here. So let me just highlight it and copy it down. We go down to the bottom, paste it in, and there we go. So now we have all of our data all set to go and ready to be analyzed. So now the next step, what we want to do is analyze this. So what I will do, I'm going to just put it onto a second sheet, and I'll just keep going back. So here's the analyze, and here is our data. So first thing we're going to do, we want to get all the teams, because we want to see how all the teams are doing. So we're going to take the teams and copy it, and I'm going to paste it on the other tab. And now I'm going to go to Data and remove duplicates. And my data is a heading, which is Team. And we click OK, and it should remove 1,952 duplicates, kept 30, because there's 30 teams. Now I'm going to sort this. I'm just going to sort it by team name to get it alphabetical. So now we're just going to do a simple one. We'll just check what their wins and losses were. And what we're going to do for a lot of these is we're going to use, it's called count if, sum if, and average if. Those just, like here, well, here, I'll show you what we're doing a count if. There's a count if or count ifs. Count if is if you're just looking at one criteria and then you want to pull in a result. Count ifs is if when you're looking at two. So I'm going to do count ifs, and then we do parentheses. So what's the criteria range? So we're going to go to the data, and what's the range? The range is the team. So first we want to look at the team. So it's going to look at everywhere where there's Atlanta, because that's the team we're looking at. And next we just want to count how many times it says win. So we got to do the same range. So now we're doing the whole column, comma, and we want to count the wins. There, so they get 31 wins. So it's looking at column C for Atlanta, and then column I for wins. And then if we copy this down, you'll see Boston at 40 wins. It counted the W 33 times for Brooklyn. And now let's press Control-C and just copy the actual formula in. And all we got to do is now we're just looking for losses. There, so we just did a formula to count wins and losses. Now let's check wins with the spread. So that's pretty similar. It's going to be count ifs again. And we start off the same because the main thing is we're looking at with the team. So we're looking at Atlanta. But now we just got to look at a different column. We want to look at column M, the wins losses with the spread. So we're going to look at column M. And we want wins. So we're going to put W. And it's got to be in quotes because it's text. So they have 31 wins, but only 28 with the spread. And now we'll do losses with the spread. And since it's the same thing, the same columns, I'm just going to copy it and paste it in. It's tough. If you try to just copy this over, you may get an error because see how this is looking at column C. Now it's looking at column D. So you have to anchor those in by putting $signs. So sometimes it's easier just to copy actually go into the formula and then paste it into the formula bar. So here let's change the W to an L. And so they're 28 and 37. And here's our records with the point spread. Now let's check over-unders. How many went over? So we're going to do count ifs. We're going to check our team first. And then we're going to check the over-under, which is, where is that? Right here. Over-under outcome. And we said, oh, the word is over in there. So when it goes over, so there's 35 games went over, and this went under. So I'm going to copy the formula again, paste it in, and then just look for a different word. There, so there, 35 of the 30 games went, of the 65 games went over. So now this is all. Let me just make this just slightly bigger. Okay, so we have our data here. But a lot of this you could probably get from gambling sites or so on to see how a team is with the spread and over-under. Now let's get into a little bit more in-depth data to kind of see a little more what it is. So let's look at the average over-under. So in here, we're going to do an average if. It works the same as the count if, but we're just doing average ifs. So what is our average range? What range are we going to look at? And we want to look at the over-under. So we're going to go to data, and here's our over-under. Comma, and now what's it looking for? Criteria range 1. The team. And then another comma. We go back to our analyze, and we're looking for Atlanta. So everywhere that Atlanta comes up, it's going to go to the corresponding column and pull in the over-under, and then it's going to average them all up. So when I copy this down, now let's make this look more like a number. Make it a little bigger. So make all this still a little bigger. And there, so you can see now what the average over-under is. And like Cleveland, average is only 213. Well, Charlotte games are 227. So that's a 14-point spread every game. So that's a pretty big difference there. So now we can kind of look into a little more. Let's kind of look at the wins and losses with the spread when the over-under, say, is greater than 230. So this is a little more complicated, but we're only counting them up. So we're going to do a count ifs, And we want to first start off by counting the team. And now we want to count how many times the over-under is greater. So the criteria is column G. Now, or the criteria range is column G. Now, what's the criteria? To get a criteria of over-under, what you got to do, you got to do quote. You got to put the over-under in quote, and then an and to kind of combine it to with whatever number you want. So it's going to say which ones are over 230. And then we want to do one more, which is the win-loss with the spread. And we want those as wins. So that's how many wins they would have. This is how many times they won when the point spread is over 230. Do we copy that down? Like Boston's never won when it's over 230. But now let's check the losses. So we're going to do pretty much the same formula. I'm going to just copy this over right from the formula bar. And the only thing that changes is the losses. So now when we copy this down, there you can see, it looks like Boston's never even played in a game where the over-under was over 230. Let's look for something interesting here. Here, let's see them. Okay, Minnesota's 11-5 when the point spread is over 230. But let's see what's their record. Wins and losses with the spread is right here. Here, so we can see the whole screen. Let me freeze the panes. There. So now Minnesota, they're 36-29 with the point spread, which is pretty good. But 11-5, which is about 70% wins when the point spread is over 230. So those are the type of things that we can analyze. And then we can do the same thing if we want something less. When the point spread's under 210, when the spread is 7 or more. Let's do one more, and then we'll call it a video. So what's the wins and losses when the spread is more than 7, we'll say. So it's going to be very similar. So we're going to do count ifs. First we're checking the team. And then we're going to look at the point spread. So the criteria is where's the point spread, which is right here. When the point spread greater and 7. So when it's greater than 7, so that means when they're getting more than 7 points. So they'd be an underdog. So some teams may never be a 7-point underdog, so they may not even have any results. So we're just checking when this number is 7.5 or more. And the final one is, did they win or lose? So we're going to check the outcome with the spread and a win. And they won 1. And let's check the losses now. And we can do that just by copying it. And pasting it and changing the win to a loss. So they're 1-3 when they're getting 7 or more points. And if we look, some teams like Detroit's always an underdog. So they're 22-17, which is pretty good when they're getting a lot of points. Cleveland 7-3, that's pretty good. Here, this is a very interesting one. Indiana, they're 22-45, so they're a pretty bad team. With the spread, they're 29-35. But when they're getting 7 or more points, they win 70% of the time. So that could be a good bet to do. So when they're not getting 7 points, if we take that off, they only have 22. They're 22-32, which is pretty awful. So Indiana's a good one to look at the spread. If they're getting more than 7, you take them. If they're not, take the opponent. And that's just a few of the many different things you can kind of check with this. I'm going to end the video here because we could go on all day. Any data that you have here, we can check. The date's not in a good format, but we could format this into a date and we could see like how many in the last week, how many wins have they got against the spread, or how many times have they played, and see how they do against the spread. Or did they play last night? Sort of like days rest, how they do against the spread, or with the over-unders. There's tons of different things you can do, and you can keep going. Maybe I'll make another video on this one day. Maybe I'll even make a little mini course on this if I get enough interest and enough videos. One thing I'm kind of flown out there is possibly doing like online like group classes to kind of teach some of these things. So sometimes with a video you may not understand something, and you just have to send an email with the group coaching. People will be asking the questions and going through. I'm still debating if I'm going to do that, but it's just a possibility. So, all right, I'm calling the video here. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. If you want to see more gambling type videos, put it in the comments and just click the thumbs up. And definitely check out my website, spreadsheetsschooldfs.com. I got a bunch of video courses on there, mainly for DFS. But hopefully I'll get some gambling on there, team gambling. And optimizelineups.com. I got a lot of lineup builders and simulation tools on there. So that's it. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.